Hi, I'm Ken Kessler, and welcome to the Sounds of Christmas podcast. If you're new to this podcast, I want to start by saying thanks for joining us. If you're not new, welcome back. Either way, I'm very glad you're here. Now, to avoid any confusion, I want to start off by saying there won't be any music played here. This is a place for conversation. I'll talk about Christmas music and some related topics, sometimes by myself and sometimes with guests. If you're looking for music, just go to soundsofchristmas.com and click on the tree or the player on the front page or on the Listen Now page. We play the best variety of Christmas music all year long. Well, except in October, when we play the best variety of Halloween music. This December marks the 180th anniversary of Charles Dickens' novel A Christmas Carol. In honor of that, I thought I'd delve into the music of A Christmas Carol, specifically the songs that were written and recorded primarily for certain adaptations of this seasonal favorite. As I get going here, I should say this is by no means complete. A Christmas Carol has been adapted for television, film, and other media countless times, and not all of those adaptations have survived. But here's what I've been able to find out. Frederick March starred in one of the first versions, possibly the first, that contained music. That was in 1954, and it appeared as an episode of the anthology series Shower of Stars. It featured music by the Roger Wagner Chorale, including the song The Darkest Day of Winter, which opens the production. There's also a duet called What Shall I Give My Lad, My Girl for Christmas, performed by Sally Fraser and Craig Hill, who played Belle and young Ebenezer Scrooge, respectively. And The Ghost of Christmas Past, played by Ray Middleton, who also plays Scrooge's nephew Fred, sings A Very Merry Christmas. There are a bunch more songs in that. Those, at least to me, were the highlights. But you can find this production on YouTube if you just search A Christmas Carol 1954. A couple years later, in 1956, Vic Damone appeared in a version of A Christmas Carol called The Stingiest Man in Town. It featured many songs, including Yes, There Is a Santa Claus, performed by Betty Madigan, who played Mrs. Cratchit, and she sang this song to Tiny Tim. Other performances in this adaptation included An Old-Fashioned Christmas, performed by Johnny Desmond, the title song, performed by the Four Lads, and The Christmas Spirit, which was performed by Basil Rathbone, who played Scrooge. He also played Jacob Marley in the 1954 version that I just mentioned. Next up, the animated television special, Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol. This show within a show featured Mr. Magoo playing Ebenezer Scrooge in a play of A Christmas Carol. Jim Backus, the voice of Mr. Magoo, sings Ringle Ringle among other songs. This particular one was a song about his love of money. In 1970, Albert Finney starred in the musical adaptation simply called Scrooge. There are many songs worth noting in this, including I Like Life, which was performed by the Ghost of Christmas Present, and Scrooge, played by Kenneth Moore and Albert Finney, respectively. December the 25th, performed by Lawrence Naismith, who played Mr. Fezziwig, and Thank You Very Much, performed by Anton Rogers, Albert Finney, and the chorus. If you haven't seen this one, and you really should, that last song is performed as a thank you to Scrooge for dying from many, many people who owed him lots of money. And of course, that's in the Christmas Yet to Come part of the movie. Rich Little did his own version of A Christmas Carol in 1978, and in the U.S., it aired on HBO. He played all the parts, and he performs a duet with himself as both W.C. Fields and Jimmy Stewart about whether it's really better to give than to receive. That same year, Rankin Bass did a remake of The Stingiest Man in Town as an animated TV special starring Walter Matthau as Scrooge and Tom Bosley as the narrator. It included many of the same songs as the original, including a duet on the song Humbug with Dennis Day playing Scrooge's nephew Fred and Walter Matthau. And in 1984, we come to one of the more unusual adaptations of A Christmas Carol, a made-for-TV special called Scrooge's Rock and Roll Christmas. In this one, a time traveler brings Scrooge a magic snow globe, which shows different singers and bands performing Christmas songs. The point being, I think, that the power of music, specifically Christmas music, would somehow lead him to change his ways. Mike Love, Bobby Goldsboro, Dean Torrance, Marilee Rush, Mary McGregor, Paul Revere and the Raiders, The Association, and Three Dog Night all perform Christmas classics. And I feel like this one should get an asterisk because it's not really an adaptation of A Christmas Carol. It does feature Scrooge, but that's really the beginning and ending of the similarities. So I'm going to go ahead and include it here, but you may not want to for a lot of reasons, and that's okay. In 1988, we got Scrooged, a big screen version of A Christmas Carol, starring Bill Murray as the president of a TV network producing a Christmas Eve television special of A Christmas Carol. There's some great songs in this, though most are relegated to being played over the credits or in the background significantly enough that they really go by unnoticed. Those include Natalie Cole's version of the Christmas song, Robbie Robertson's remake of Christmas Must Be Tonight, Mark Lennon's It's a Wonderful Life, and the duet from Annie Lennox and Al Green on Put a Little Love in Your Heart. There is one scene on the streets of New York where Bill Murray and his character's brother, played by Bill's actual brother John, pass by a group of street musicians. And this goes by in just a few seconds, but if you recognize them, you'll see that those street musicians were Miles Davis, Larry Carlton, David Sanborn, and Paul Schaefer, and they perform a little snippet of We Three Kings of Orient Are, but you can find the entire song on the soundtrack. In 1992, we got A Muppet Christmas Carol, another big screen adaptation starring Michael Caine and the Muppets. Songs featured during the movie include Marley and Marley, performed by Statler and Waldorf, who are playing the Marley brothers, Jacob and Robert, Kermit's song One More Sleep Till Christmas, and It Feels Like Christmas, led by the Ghost of Christmas Present, and many, many more. Martina McBride covers the ballad When Love Is Gone over the credits, a song that only got restored to the movie last year. Tim Curry lent his voice to an animated version of A Christmas Carol in 1997. He also sang several songs, including a duet with Jodie Benson, who voiced the character Belle, making the parting between Belle and Scrooge in a scene from Christmas Past even that much more heartbreaking. And by the way, you may not recognize the name Jodie Benson, but you probably would recognize her voice because she was the voice of Ariel in Disney's animated Little Mermaid. The next year, the All Dogs Go to Heaven film series got into the holiday spirit with an All Dogs Christmas Carol. There are several songs throughout, including one featuring the voices of Steven Weber, probably best well known for his role in the TV show Wings, Dom DeLuise, and Sheena Easton. And the song's called When We Hear a Christmas Carol. VH1 offered up their original take on A Christmas Carol with A Diva's Christmas Carol in 2000. This one starred Vanessa Williams as a Scrooge-like singer who puts her career above everyone else in her life. She performed The Heart of Christmas and Sleigh Ride in this one. In 2001, a British animated version came out called A Christmas Carol, the Movie. It featured the voices of Simon Callow, Nicolas Cage, and Kate Winslet, among others. Kate, who voiced the character of Belle, sang the song What If, and Charlotte Church's song It's the Heart That Matters Most was also featured in this one. 3 years later, Kelsey Grammer starred in A Christmas Carol, the Musical. Jane Krakowski and Jesse L. Martin performed songs as the Ghosts of Christmas Past and Christmas Present, respectively, as did Kelsey Grammer as Scrooge. And one of the standouts, at least as far as I'm concerned, was the song Link by Link, performed by Jason Alexander as Jacob Marley. Jim Carrey got back into the Christmas spirit after his role as the Grinch, voicing Scrooge as well as the Ghosts of Christmas Past, Present, and Yet to Come in Disney's animated take on A Christmas Carol. Gary Oldman was the voice of Jacob Marley and Bob Cratchit. Colin Firth was the voice of Scrooge's nephew Fred, and Bob Hoskins was Fezziwig. Unfortunately, none of those actors sang in the movie. The only real song comes at the end when Andrea Bocelli performs God Bless Us Everyone. And that brings us to 2022. Last year, we got two more versions, and both had limited runs in theaters before they went to streaming sites. First, Apple Plus gave us Spirited, which starred Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds. Both sang and performed several times in the film, most notably Ryan Reynolds' performance of Bringing Back Christmas, and Will Ferrell, along with an ensemble that included Tracy Morgan, on That Christmas Morning Feeling. I feel like Spirited is another one that should kind of have an asterisk, noting that it's not really an adaptation of A Christmas Carol. Characters from that original work are in it, but it's more like a sequel than an actual adaptation. I'm still including it due to its similarity to the original story and its ties that really bind it to A Christmas Carol. And finally, Netflix had an animated version of A Christmas Carol called Scrooge, A Christmas Carol, which was a remake of the 1970 musical that starred Albert Finney. Irish singer and actor Fra Free sang the opening song, I Love Christmas, and Trevor Dion Nicholas sang the same song at the end. Not mentioned in this chronology are operas and ballets. There have been at least 4 operas and 3 ballets that have been produced over the years as further adaptations of A Christmas Carol. And there you have it. Probably not all of the versions that include music specifically written and recorded for their individual productions, but I think that it is at least most of them. I know this hasn't been much more than a long list of songs, many of which are difficult, if not impossible to find. So I'm going to do something that I haven't done before. This December, I will air a special program on the Sounds of Christmas station, playing most, if not all, of the songs mentioned in this podcast. Dates and times for that special will be announced in the next few weeks, so stay tuned. Thanks so much for listening and for continuing to support the Sounds of Christmas station and podcast. I told you how to listen to the station, and you're already listening to the podcast, so my work here is just about done. All of our episodes are available on the Sounds of Christmas website. Just click the podcast tab. And we also have a Linktree page, so you can find us on your favorite streaming site, and then you can subscribe, and you'll never miss another episode. I'll put those links down in the show notes. If you have comments or suggestions on this episode, previous episodes, the Sounds of Christmas station, or the Sounds of Halloween, feel free to reach out to me on social media or through the website. Thanks again. And may you always believe in Santa Claus.